It's 2 in the morning at a truck stop off Interstate 80, and a driver who's been on the road for 11 hours pulls in looking for a place to sleep. The lot is nearly full, but there's one open spot right in the middle of a packed row, squeezed between two other trucks. And instead of taking it, he keeps driving. He'll park on the Fuel Island approach, on a highway ramp, or drive another 40 minutes to the next exit before he'll slide into that space. From a car window, that makes no sense. To anyone who's spent years behind the wheel of a big rig, it makes perfect sense. Because that empty spot in the middle of the row might be the most dangerous piece of asphalt in the whole lot. Tonight, we're going to break down exactly why experienced truckers refuse to park next to other trucks at night. And by the end, you'll understand there's a whole unwritten code out there on the blacktop, one that drivers learn the hard way, usually after something expensive or frightening happens to them. To understand this, you first have to understand something most of the driving public never thinks about. There is nowhere near enough truck parking in this country. The Federal Highway Administration has studied this for years, and the numbers come out to roughly 1 legal parking space for every 11 trucks on the road. 11 trucks, 1 spot. And the problem is getting worse because states keep closing public rest areas they can't afford to maintain, while more freight rolls onto the highways every year. Every single night, hundreds of thousands of drivers are racing a federal clock that limits how many hours they can drive. And when that clock runs out, the law says they have to be parked. Period. So picture the situation. It's late, the hours are almost gone, and every truck stop for 100 miles is filling up like a stadium parking lot before kickoff. Drivers are exhausted. Some have been up since 4 in the morning, and they're all funneling into cramped lots, in the dark, maneuvering 72 feet of steel into spaces with just a few feet of clearance on either side. That's the environment we're talking about. And that environment is exactly why the veterans get choosy about where they shut down. The first reason drivers avoid the middle of the row is the simplest one, and it's the one that costs the most money. Other trucks. Backing a tractor trailer into a tight spot is hard enough in daylight when you're fresh. Now imagine doing it at 2 in the morning, in the rain, after 13 hours on duty, with your eyes burning and sodium lights throwing shadows everywhere. Every driver in that lot is doing exactly that. And some of them have been driving for 20 years, while others got their commercial license 3 weeks ago. You have no idea which one is about to back in next to you. Ask any veteran driver, and they'll tell you about waking up at 3 in the morning to a bang and finding their mirror shattered, their fender creased, or their hood scraped down the side. The truck that did it is usually long gone. Truck stop hit and runs are so common that drivers have a routine for it. Walk the truck in the morning, check the mirrors, check the corners, look for fresh paint transfer, because a damaged mirror isn't just a repair bill. It can put a driver out of service, cost him a load, and drag his safety record through the mud for something he was asleep for. That's why dash cameras that keep recording while the truck is parked have become standard equipment for a lot of owner-operators. They don't expect to catch anything on any given night. But when the insurance company asks what happened to a $900 mirror, footage beats a shrug, and the old-timers add an analog layer on top of that. Watch where they choose to park, and you'll see them hunting for a spot with a light pole, a curb, or a fence along at least one side. A light pole takes up a little room, sure. It also never backs into anybody at 3 in the morning. Half the game is simply reducing the number of strangers who can physically reach your truck. And it gets worse because the spot next to you doesn't stay empty. You might park next to nobody at 10 o'clock, and by midnight there's a truck 3 feet from your door on each side, both of them backed in by strangers, in the dark. When you park in the middle of a full row, you're not making one bet. You're making a bet on every tired driver who pulls in after you close your curtains. The end spot, the corner spot, the lonely spot at the back of the lot, those cut that risk in half or better. That's not paranoia, that's arithmetic. The second reason is something drivers call getting boxed in, and it's about more than convenience. A loaded truck in a tight spot with rigs on both sides and a car parked across the tail has exactly 0 options. If a driver gets a dispatch change at 4 in the morning, he's stuck. If there's a medical problem, he's stuck. And if there's real trouble in that lot, a fight, a fire, Someone trying to get into his truck. He cannot simply start the engine and leave. That's why you'll notice something if you ever walk through a truck stop early in the morning. The most weathered, road-worn trucks in the lot are almost always parked nose out, in spots with a straight shot to the exit. Old hands back in when they arrive so they can pull straight out when it matters. They park where nobody can block them. It's the same instinct that makes a careful man sit facing the door in a restaurant. Probably nothing will happen. But if something does, he's not trapped. And it isn't always another truck that does the blocking. Ask drivers what spikes their blood pressure, and a lot of them will say four-wheelers, regular cars, pickups, families in RVs who wander into the truck lot at midnight and park sideways across the end of a row, or nose into a truck spot to catch a few hours of sleep. The car driver wakes up at 8, stretches, grabs a coffee, and drives off with no idea he just pinned an 80,000-pound truck in place for half the night. Meanwhile, the man in that truck watched his delivery appointment come and go through the windshield. A missed appointment can cost a driver his load. A pattern of them can cost him the contract. So the veterans park where a wandering minivan simply can't trap them, and that place is almost never the middle of a crowded row. The third reason has nothing to do with danger, and everything to do with the one thing a driver needs more than fuel: sleep. Federal rules give a driver a 10-hour break, and how much of that he actually sleeps determines how safe and how sharp he is the next day. Now park him next to a refrigerated trailer. Reefer units run all night, cycling on and off. A diesel engine roaring to life 3 feet from his pillow every 20 minutes until sunrise. Add another truck idling on the other side, an APU rattling behind him, and someone's air brakes hissing at 5 in the morning. And that 10-hour break turns into 4 hours of broken dozing. Veteran drivers can spot a reefer row from across the lot, and they will park a quarter mile away from it, next to a dumpster if they have to. There's light, too. The middle rows near the building sit under the brightest lamps in the lot, and headlights sweep across those spots all night long as trucks come and go. Every set of high beams that rakes across the sleeper curtains is one more little jolt to a brain that's trying to shut down. The far corner is darker, quieter, and stiller, and a driver feels the difference in his bones the next afternoon, somewhere around hour 9 of an 11-hour day. Sleep is money in that business. Sleep is also survival, because a drowsy driver in an 80,000-pound vehicle is a danger to everyone on the road, including himself. The fourth reason is invisible, and almost nobody outside the industry ever talks about it. Exhaust. When trucks park in tight rows, every idling engine around you is pumping exhaust into a narrow canyon of trailers right at the height of your cab. On a cold, still night, that air doesn't go anywhere. It hangs between the trucks, and it seeps into sleeper cabs through vents and window seals. Most of it is just an ugly smell and a headache in the morning. But carbon monoxide is a real, documented killer of drivers, and it doesn't announce itself. It's colorless, odorless, and it puts you deeper asleep before it does anything worse. There have been cases over the years of drivers found in their sleepers after a night parked nose to tail in packed lots with engines running all around them. It's rare, but drivers who've been out there for decades know the stories, and it's one more quiet reason the end of the row, upwind and open, beats the middle every time. And that brings us to winter, because winter takes everything we've talked about and sharpens it. Stay with me here, because right after this comes the one reason that makes veteran drivers' knuckles whiten. Here's the bind a driver faces on a January night in Wyoming or Minnesota. It's 10 below zero. He wants to idle the engine all night to keep the sleeper warm. But dozens of states and cities now have anti-idling laws with real fines, some over $1,000. Diesel is expensive. Idling burns close to a gallon an hour, and many company trucks are programmed to shut the engine off automatically after a few minutes. So the engine goes quiet, and that big steel cab starts shedding heat fast. A sleeper can drop below freezing in a couple of hours. And if the truck develops a problem overnight, a fuel line gels up, the batteries die, the APU quits, that driver is now sitting in a metal box in lethal cold, possibly at a remote lot or a highway pull-off, waiting hours for help. People have died that way in this country, in trucks and in cars, and the story usually follows the same arc. The vehicle quits, the cold creeps in, and the person inside believes help is an hour out when it's really 6. This is why every experienced driver keeps cold weather survival gear within arm's reach of the bunk, and why the old-timers will lecture a rookie about it before they'll lecture him about anything else. Water, food, a flashlight, warm boots, and above all, something that will hold body heat if the truck can't. Wool blankets are the tradition, but wool is bulky, and if it gets damp in a cab, it's next to useless. What a lot of drivers carry now instead is a compact thermal bivy, basically an emergency sleeping bag with a reflective inner lining that bounces your own body heat back at you. One that's become popular for exactly this is called TerraShell. It packs down smaller than a soda can, weighs a few ounces, and it just lives in the door pocket or the go bag until the night you need it. You climb in, and your own body heat does the work, even in a dead cold cab. Drivers keep one in the sleeper, and plenty keep another in the family car glove box, because a stranded car in a blizzard is the same problem on a smaller scale. If you want to take a look at it, the link is in the description below. Whatever gear you choose, the principle is the one every trucker learns early. The truck can fail you. Your preparation can't. Now, back to that crowded row, and the reason I promised you. Crime. Truck stops at night attract a specific kind of thief, and the professional ones don't work alone. Cargo theft in this country runs into the hundreds of millions of dollars every year, and organized crews scout truck stops the way burglars scout neighborhoods. They're looking for high-value trailers, electronics, cigarettes, pharmaceuticals, and they're looking for cover. And nothing on earth gives a thief better cover than a packed row of trucks. Between two trailers, in the dark. A man cutting a seal or drilling a lock is invisible from almost every angle. The security cameras can't see him. The drivers dozing 30 feet away can't see him. Other drivers walking to the coffee counter can't see him. The tight row that looks so cozy is actually a curtain, and the thieves know it. It isn't just cargo. Fuel theft is an old truck stop hustle, a quiet pump and a hose in the saddle tanks while the driver sleeps. And again, it happens in the middle of the rows, not out in the open. Then there's the knock on the door at midnight, the stranger with a story about needing a jump or selling something, which is sometimes exactly what it looks like and sometimes a test to see if anyone's home. And there's a name in this industry that puts weight behind all of it. Jason Rivenberg. In March of 2009, Jason was hauling a load of organic milk through South Carolina. He arrived near his receiver ahead of schedule, and there was no safe truck parking anywhere close, so he did what thousands of drivers still do every night. He pulled into an abandoned gas station to wait out the clock. That night, a man approached his truck, robbed him, and shot him. Jason died over the $7 in his pocket, leaving behind a pregnant wife and a young son. His wife, Hope, spent the next 3 years fighting for what became known as Jason's Law, a federal effort to fund safe truck parking across the country, and Congress passed it in 2012. Ask drivers today and they'll tell you the shortage never went away. But Jason's story is the reason the industry talks about parking the way it talks about brakes. Where you shut down for the night is a safety decision, and every veteran treats it like one. That's why drivers who've been around park where there's light, where there's camera coverage, where their trailer doors are backed against a fence or a wall so they can't be opened at all, and where anyone approaching their truck has to cross open ground to do it. Every one of those choices pulls them away from the packed row and toward the edges of the lot. There's also a reason that sounds like something out of a movie until you've seen the aftermath of it: fire. Trucks burn. Electrical shorts. Dragging brakes. Wheel bearings. Refrigeration units. Cigarettes in a sleeper. A tractor-trailer fire is not a small event. There's 100+ gallons of diesel on board, tires that burn like furnaces, and sometimes a trailer full of who knows what. And when trucks are parked 3 feet apart, a fire doesn't stay in one truck. It walks right down the row. There's footage from truck stop fires where one rig turned into 4 rigs in the time it took the fire department to arrive. A driver asleep in the truck next door has minutes, sometimes less, and if he's boxed in, he's not driving away from it, he's running in his socks. Veterans even think about what's riding in the trailers around them, because nobody wants to spend the night beside a placarded tanker, and a packed row of strange trailers is a row of unknown cargo. Is a truck fire likely on any given night? No. But drivers think in careers, not nights. Over a 30-year career of 200 nights a year on the road, the unlikely things stop being unlikely. The end spot costs nothing. The middle spot occasionally costs everything. So, put it all together, and a pattern starts to appear in every truck stop in America. One you can read like a book once you know it's there. The back row and the end caps fill up with the faded, mud-splattered million-mile trucks, backed in nose out, doors to the light, trailers against the fence. The tight middle rows near the building fill up last, mostly with newer trucks, rental units, and drivers still learning. Technology has changed some of this game. Most drivers now run parking apps that show which lots are filling up hours ahead, and the big truck stop chains sell reserve spots for $15 or $20 a night. Plenty of veterans grumble about paying to park on principle, and then pay anyway because they've done the math. $20 against a $900 mirror, a stolen load, or a ruined night of sleep is the cheapest insurance on the interstate. But no app tells you which corner of the lot floods when it rains, or where the reefer rows form, or which spots the cameras actually cover. The old-timers know those things by name at their regular stops, and they know which truck stops they will flat out drive past no matter how tired they are. None of it is written down anywhere. It gets passed on the way it's always been passed on, over coffee, over the CB, and by one bad night that teaches a lesson no orientation video ever could. And maybe that's the real takeaway here, beyond trucks and parking lots. The people who do a hard job for decades develop an eye for danger that looks like superstition from the outside and looks like wisdom from the inside. The trucker circling past a perfectly good parking spot is reading a situation that took him 20 years to learn how to read. He's protecting his sleep, his equipment, his load, his license, and on the wrong night, his life. The next time you're at a highway travel plaza and you see a lone truck parked way out at the dark edge of the lot while spots sit open near the door, you'll know. That driver isn't lost. He's exactly where he wants to be. So now you know why that middle spot stays empty and why the smartest drivers in the lot are the ones parked the farthest away. If you enjoyed this look inside the world of trucking, hit subscribe, because next up, we're covering the tricks truckers use to survive mountain grades that terrify everyone else. And you don't want to miss that one. See you in the next one.